people want to know that other people have had a good experience with your brand and that they can trust it. And that's a big, big part of it.
Hey, my name is Felix Tian, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn how to figure out what differentiates you from your competitors, why you should purchase from potential competitors, and how do you decide what to copy from the marketplace and what you should do differently. Before our show, I wanted to chat about Shopify shipping. Did you know that you can buy shipping labels for your orders at home and print them with a regular printer, get shipping insurance within the United States, and receive discounted shipping rates with certain carriers with Shopify shipping? There are no additional fees, carrier account, or app required. This is included with your Shopify plan, so check out Shopify shipping today at shopify.com/ship. Today I'm joined by Jonathan and Michelle from Manly Bands. Manly Bands sells the most badass wedding rings on earth using unique materials like dino bone, meteorite, deer antler, helping men get a ring that matches their personality. And we're starting in 2016 and based out of Linden, Utah. Welcome, Jonathan and Michelle.
Hey, thanks for having us, Felix.
Yeah, so super cool product. I don't have a badass wedding ring. I wish I knew about this at that time that I was getting married. But tell us more about how the idea behind the business came about.
Yeah, for sure. We hear that all the time, by the way. You know, it's nice to hear because, you know, one thing we really set out to do is make it so guys can get excited about having a wedding band that they really can connect with, that has these cool and unique materials like dinosaur bone, deer antler, meteorite. And that was kind of our goal from the beginning. So you want to go into how we started?
Sure. So we were shopping for John's wedding band, and it was just a nightmare. We kept going into jewelry stores, and John has these massive hands, which you guys can't see, but John has massive hands.
We might post a picture somewhere just to confirm that the hand is massive.
Yeah. Oh, they're like 4 feet big. Yeah, it's crazy. No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sure. So John has these massive hands, and so we went into jewelry stores, and a typical men's size is about a size 10. John has a 16.5. And so the jeweler's sizes only really go up to a size 13 and in like your regular jewelry store.
Yeah.
And so none of them could size him. And then also they were only showing him these really boring white gold bands, and they were super expensive. And our budget, I think, was like $300-400 for his ring.
Yeah. And for starters, that 0.5 is very important, above 16. So, you know, when you go into a jewelry store, they look at you like, you know, you're some sort of very, very crazy person. And they couldn't even size me. And it was a real problem. And so I remember first going in there because we wanted to get Michelle a wedding band. And she obviously had her engagement ring at that point. And she was super excited because when it comes to wedding bands, women have so many options. And there were all these different styles, different price points. She could choose from just a plethora of rings. And, you know, at the end of that whole experience, I remember saying to the jeweler, I said, so how about me? Like, can I get my band here too? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Just go to the back corner of the store over there. We got some options for guys over there. And I'm like, oh, great. So I make my way past all of these women's rings into the back section of the store where there was a very small case that probably had 5 or 6 options and, you know, very traditional options. And they were all, of course, not my size. They were quite expensive. And, you know, I really didn't connect with any of them. And I remember saying to Michelle later, you know, you have all these choices and you're getting so excited about your wedding band. I wish I felt the same way. I mean, I understand what it represents, but I want to also feel like it's a style that I can connect with. I'm going to wear it the rest of my life. Like, let me get something cool. And there just weren't any options for that.
Yeah, and you know, when usually people have encounter a problem like this, they'll, you know, kind of chalk it up and like, well, like you mentioned, like maybe this is just all that exists and I'll just kind of deal with it. But what was the kind of leap or that jump to realizing that this was a problem that other people had, and then also that there was a business opportunity there?
So after the wedding, we decided to put our heads together and figure out how we can pay the bills. And so we said, okay, well, let's try to solve a problem that we understand. What problem can we solve that we had? And so we put our heads together and said, okay, well, remember that experience we had buying our ring? It was not a great experience. And I bet that we could find a way to make that better for everybody, provide better styles, more options, great customer service. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did. We put our heads together and made it happen.
Yeah, so that makes sense that you're looking for a business to start, a way to make some money, and then you took the advice of either just not necessarily scratching your own itch necessarily, but then just trying to solve a problem that you understand. So you clearly understood a problem, clearly a demographic, a potential customer. You already were a potential customer. Well, what kind of experience, expertise did either of you have at the time to get into basically the jewelry business?
Sure. So none on the jewelry business, to be perfectly honest with you, Felix, absolutely none. But John had built a whole bunch of different websites. He was an entrepreneur of many sorts in the web world, and had also had a company that had done some digital advertising. So he knew his way around Facebook ads and Google ads and that sort of thing, and also knew how to build a website. I had been an actor and a producer, and I knew a lot about branding, from a performer perspective. And I just was able to transfer that knowledge into products, which was really interesting how easily it transferred. And so we set out to, create these different personalities that guys could connect with. And so our whole spiel with Manly Bands in the very beginning, and still continues today, is matching a guy's personality with the perfect ring. And so our original, 20 rings that we still have on the site, most of them, are like the rock star, the cowboy, the baller, like all these fun things that guys want to be. And it was up to me to sort of try to match a ring with a personality and then come up with, for me, what that character would be like. And who is this guy that wears this ring? So I had a ball doing that.
Yeah, so it sounds like when you were launching this whole exercise of identifying these kind of personas that you go after, did you launch with all of those at first? Like, did you start with select ones? Like, what was because it sounds like when you're just talking about it, it could be overwhelming, right? You're launching with all of these different, essentially, like markets or sub-markets to go into.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And, when we started, I think we had about 20 or 30 styles on the site. We really tried to cater each style to a different persona, a different type of customer. And that's what Michelle really excelled at with her product descriptions. And we really made sure that each style really did fit that persona. So if you're an outdoorsy person, we made sure that we had deer antler and some wood and materials like that. If you were more of a city person or a corporate type person, we had like really cool metals or carbon fiber, cobalt chrome, things like that. So it was a process, and it was a little overwhelming in the beginning. And as we grew and started to add more styles and unique materials, we kind of have it down to a science now. We have a really great team, and we know what our customers want. We interact a lot with them, and we give them what they ask for.
Yeah, and I can imagine that when you look back, you like you're saying now, you kind of have it down to science. You know the methodology, or maybe based on experience, you can feel in your gut like what's the right material, right design to match with the personality. When you look back, were there certain things that either worked way better than you expected, or just you thought would work but just didn't work? Like, how rough or how accurate were you with your kind of estimates about what would work with which market?
Sure. I think it really did start to resonate with guys because they just weren't given any attention in the wedding band process, like John was saying before. And it was so important for us to give them a voice and give them permission to find something that they actually enjoyed wearing. And they had just never been given that permission before. So it was actually really fun when we started interacting with our customers, because that was basically, I was the customer service person for the first, bit there. And it was really interesting hearing what our customers had to say. And I would say to anybody who's new at this, listen to your customers, because it helps you pivot and understand what more to get and what less to, what things to cull the herd with, so to speak, and get rid of these certain kinds of products. People aren't interested in that, but, they want this. And it's really important to have a little bit of a variety, especially online, when you're selling to so many different kinds of people. But yeah, certainly, we started to see trends in different cities, and it was like, okay, people out west are ordering the antler, or during the winter, we noticed that people would order antler more than in the summer. It was just really interesting to see all that stuff.
Yeah, so let's talk about, so once you had this idea, you both had some experience around that were required skills to launch a business, the branding, the online marketing, the online advertising that was involved. What was the first step to actually getting a physical, real product made?
Yeah. Well, we honestly, we went to Alibaba and we started looking around to see what vendors had different things. And then we started looking locally too at different vendors as well. And we just tried everything. We tried everything, and we found the best products that we could find, because we wanted our customers obviously to have the best product. It was about the best product, the coolest materials, and, matching this sort of personality with them. And so that became the Manly Band's kind of shtick in the beginning, and still continues today. That's how we sell to our customers. And I would say too, to anybody who's new to this, it's really important to find what your voice is, not only from a brand perspective, but also what's different about your business than everybody else's business. And so those are the things that we were trying to find in that beginning stage of finding that product. What's important to us? What was important to us during this whole process? And so those are all the questions that we answered as we looked at different vendors.
Yeah, and I can see how that can be like a guiding, I don't know, star or something, to a North Star for you to know how to make decisions once you understand like why is your business separated from others. Like how can you continue to choose manufacturers, choose designs, choose marketing that continues to amplify this difference that you have between your business versus others. And was it as simple as just asking that question to yourself, well, what's different about us than others, or like what is? I think a lot of people which are kind of stuck here, either they haven't progressed beyond here, or just maybe skipped a step and now realize how important it is, that just don't really understand how to actually sit down and figure this out. Like, how do you figure out what makes you different? How do you figure out what separates you from what's out in the marketplace?
That's a great question, Felix. And I think a lot of it begins with market research. So, once we knew what problem we wanted to solve, we had to develop a product that was different from everybody else's. And that was kind of our goal from the beginning. We didn't launch with a traditional gold ring or a silver ring or whatnot. We launched with what we call the cowboy and the rock star and the mountain man. And all of those rings are super unique, whether it's on the inside sleeve or on the wood or on the outside finish. And we did a lot of market research. We looked around. We tried to find other competitors in the space. We tried to look and see what they were doing. It really gave us a lot of insight and information as to what people were interested in and how we could do things differently. So, and that doesn't just stop at the product experience either. I mean, we were looking at other people's policies, return policies, refund policies, exchange policies, shipping policies. You can learn a lot about how a business runs by reading their policies. And in our case, you could easily see, okay, we're going to want at least a 30 to 60 day return policy. And, we ended up trying, I think, a 60-day return policy at one point, and we quickly learned why people do 30-day return policies. And it's, restocking fees, like you start to learn, and then you take that data and you try to create the best customer experience you can with it. And you're always tweaking and iterating. We're constantly testing slightly different policies to see what's best for the customer. We're getting feedback from our customer service team, our products team, and just always trying to make it a better experience. But research is super important. So I highly recommend anybody looking to start a business to definitely not only look at the quality of their products, but also how their products are being perceived in the market and what other people are doing.
Yeah, and I would add to that, it's important sometimes too to purchase from these other vendors too. These competitors, would-be competitors, if you're looking to produce stainless steel straws, as an example, you start buying stainless steel straws from other vendors to understand what you like about their product or don't like about it, what you like about their customer service experience, what you like about communicating with them. Because you'll start to learn, I like Zendesk, I don't like it, I like this other platform better. So it really shortcuts a lot of things if you do your research.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'm going to talk about is this idea of research and data. So you can collect, and there's access to a lot of data. I think the challenge is then how do you actually make sense of it all? And one thing that I think you guys had talked about was about how you looked at what other brands are doing, and you mentioned that you purchased from other brands and went through that experience and saw what you liked, what you didn't like. How do you decide what things are like table stakes that you keep the industry, it's the industry standard, the marketplace expects it, versus areas that you can basically chart your own path, right? Because I think that's like the challenge. Like, what do you keep and what do you do differently? How do you make those kind of decisions?
Yeah, a lot of it's testing. It's launching a policy, making sure it's as thorough and comprehensive as you can for what you need it for. For instance, an exchange policy. And testing it with your customers. I mean, you have to always watch your conversion rate. You're watching your abandoned carts. You're looking at feedback from people in the chat widget or from the support emails, and you're trying to gauge, okay, is this really a good and fair policy? I mean, you always want to do well by your customers, but there's also a line where you need it to make sure that it works for your business too. we experimented with not having a small restocking fee. Our restocking fee is not very much, but what it really helped us, because what was happening when we didn't have a restocking fee is people would come to the site. They didn't know what style they want. They'd buy 5, sometimes 10 rings, put it on their credit card, and then return, all of them except one. And that would actually be quite a headache when you're doing things at scale, because that's a massive amount of money moving around, and customer service dealing with these situations, and shipping costs when you're offering free shipping and things like that. So we instituted a very small restocking fee, and that helped that a lot. That really brought that the rate of those situations happening down, and it allowed us to kind of decide, okay, is this a good policy to have? And so ultimately we kept it.
Yeah, and I think for us, that also helps us engage with the customer a little bit more, because they want to be sure on the product that they're getting, which is great. So it causes us to be able to, engage in a conversation about what's your style? Do you like this? Do you like that? Let's talk about your size. Because for us, one of the biggest hurdles with wedding rings is sizes. People don't typically know their size. And definitely guys, because a lot of these guys have never worn a ring before, and that's totally fair.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to have that conversation beforehand.
Yeah, I was going to ask that about how you kind of get over that potential friction of ring size. And yeah, just exactly what you're talking about. Where I never knew my ring size before getting married. I think I already forgot what my ring size is after getting my wedding band. So what is I can imagine that being a big challenge, even more so than buying clothing that fits, because you can kind of guess, and it's way cheaper to buy clothing than something that you're going to be wearing for the rest of your life. So how do you handle that?
Sure. So we have 2 different kinds of rings. We have what we call ready to ship, which are rings that are here in our warehouse. They go out right away. And then we have made to order rings. And so for our made to order rings, those take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. And for those customers, because it's a little bit more annoying to resize those rings, we love to send them a sizer first. And so they get the sizer in the mail. And then a couple days later, we ask them, what felt good. We have a video for them to watch, to use the sizer and that sort of thing. We try to be fun about it. So we definitely take the time to try to get them to give us their size in that respect. We did have an app that we were trying for a bit too, but really with men's sizes and women's sizes, the knuckle plays such a big factor in sizing. You really want to have something that you can put over the knuckle. You guys can't see me, but I'm making my ring go over my knuckle right now. And it's super different if I was, to do that, as opposed to taking, say, a piece of string and, wrapping it around my finger, which a lot of sites will tell you to do. And I'm here to tell you that is not a good way to size your finger. So, yeah.
Yeah. We found that the physical sizers really made a big difference. And honestly, we're still trying to, iterate on that too. We're always trying different ways. We just switched up our sizer design about a month ago, and we're getting better results. So it's always we always try to optimize. And I think it's important that no matter what type of business you're in, you're always trying to improve your workflows and processes. And that's ultimately what we do.
Yeah, and I'm curious too. I think that there's opportunities for this in other industries beyond jewelry, where you're sending them a product already, right? It's something valuable already. Does that help with conversions? People that are getting these sizes, are they much more likely to convert? I think people can kind of get creative here and think about how can you send something at a much smaller scale to kind of get the customer transacting with you, and does that lead to better conversions? Talk to us about how much of an impact that makes to the conversion process.
Sure.
Well, it's interesting. We're always asking that, and we're always looking at that data to try to optimize that whole workflow. One thing that we did was for a while we actually gave away the sizers for free, and we found that not as many people came back to buy a ring. So we then put our price back on it. We think we charged like $10 or $13, and that we found that more people came back. And I think having that connection, finding people who are, willing to transact with your company initially, they're definitely more likely to come back if they have a good experience. So we found that those people were more likely to be purchasers, which I think makes total sense. And ultimately the conversion rate went up when we started charging for the sizers again. And like Michelle was saying, we have 2 different classes of rings. And so our MTO ones, we actually give the sizer for free as part of the purchase. And ultimately that dropped our exchange rate and resizing rate down significantly. I think we're less than 10% right now, or somewhere in that area, which is amazing because it costs a lot of money to be reshipping out and resizing, and especially when we're paying for shipping both ways. And So just another example of when you optimize a process, you can save a lot more money and in this case, increase the conversion rate.
Well,
Makes
and one
sense.
other thing I would add for anyone who's starting a store from scratch, do not choose something that has sizes. It will make your life so much easier.
or at least not 17 sizes.
25
or
sizes,
25
actually,
sizes. Yeah, because we do half sizes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe 3 or 4 sizes if you're doing a shirt or apparel or something. But, watches, sunglasses, wallets, that's awesome. There's no sizes.
Yeah, no, it's funny how you don't realize the mess you're getting yourself in beforehand, which I think is a good thing, right? If you had known how much of a headache it might have
That's
been,
right.
maybe, you wouldn't have gone. I want to talk about the kind of the funnel that's involved. I think, John, I had the same experience as you where I bought my band from wherever my wife bought her ring and her band, right? I was not the person that decided which store to buy from. So who's actually going online to search for these bands? Is it who is it? Is it the man that's searching for the band? Like, what's the person that's actually seeking out this product?
Yeah, so I think the younger generation is just more apt to look up things online, whether they're looking to purchase online in our case or looking to do research into what's available. They end up typing in men's wedding rings or men's wedding bands, and it's a very competitive space now. And I think most guys are probably just looking to do research on different styles and then maybe go to their local store. But hopefully we get in front of them and can convince them that with our reviews and with our styles and with our prices that it is safe, it is okay to purchase jewelry that is a little more expensive than they might find elsewhere. And it works out. We have a lot of very happy customers. But I think most of our advertising is done on Google and Facebook. And of course, Google is more intent-based, so we have a higher conversion rate there where people are looking for rings. They're typing that in. We're getting our ads in front of them. And on Facebook, it's more about just piquing their interest and getting them to check us out. And so we target people, of course, based on engagement and a bunch of other variables. But we find that definitely gets us in front of the right people. And then if we can impress them with really high quality creative, whether that's videos or photos or things like that, it really draws their attention and brings them to the site.
Yeah, and in the wedding industry, one thing too that we're finding is that there's a trend where women are buying the men's ring and men are buying the women's ring, obviously, which we're all used to, but in that community, it's interesting to see so many women on the site purchasing, and it's fantastic, so we are able to engage with both or all genders, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, speaking of it being a competitive marketplace, I can see how Google high intent, the purchase intent. So I can see that working. When it comes to something like Facebook, where you just kind of try and pique their interest, as you had mentioned, John, it's such a tight window, though, right, where they're interested in buying a ring, right? Because before they ever get close to the wedding or after the wedding, obviously, they're not going to be interested in the product or in this kind of looking for this kind of product. So how does that affect the way that you do your online advertising?
Yeah, for the non high intent platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still target, like I said, we target like engaged, which, and we know that people who are engaged usually post about it on Facebook. I know we did.
Okay, so engaged as in like engaged to get married. I was thinking about the word engaged. Okay, I got it.
In the wedding jargon, yes, engaged in that sense. So, thankfully they'll mark that, and Facebook has that as a category that you can target. And so that's how we started out. Now it's a lot more involved. We're using all sorts of different tools and attribution tools. But just initially at a very basic level, it's engaged, and that gets us in front of the right people. And then, they see our ads. And like I was saying, that creative is such a key component. You want to have high quality creative, and not just pictures of rings. We did that for years. But what we found is people also want to learn about the business. They want to see who Manly Bands is, like who works here, who is our Manly Bands family, as we call it. They want to see lifestyle photos. They want to see people using the product, wearing the product. They want to see customer photos in UGC. It's definitely a multifaceted approach to creative. We also have an amazing video team in-house that are always cranking out cool and funny videos. We've launched a YouTube series. I think you want people to be able to connect not just with the product, but with your brand. And the creative is such a key component to that.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes and let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview.
Makes sense. Now let's talk about the launch. So you two had decided this was a problem you want to solve. You wanted to get into it. You started looking for manufacturers. When was it ready to kind of hit the let's go live button and launch this business, launch the website specifically?
Yeah, I think we launched mid-November 2016. We didn't put a huge amount of ad budget behind it. I think it was maybe $30 or $50 a day to get going. And we really just, once we had the website up, we had our 20 styles loaded. Michelle was ready for customer service, and we started running the ads. And we had already gotten a couple of orders in from our suppliers, and we were just ready to go. And it was really fun. I mean, we first, of course, we're white knuckled. Here we go. All right. We're spending $30 that we don't have. Let's do this. And, then the first order came in, and it was kind of crazy. And I don't think, and look, we've had 30 failures before a success. So I don't want to make it sound easier than, make it sound easy, because it's not. But in this case, we had done a lot of prep work on the site. We had tried to optimize for what we thought would be a good conversion-focused site by handling objection handlers like shipping and customer service and returns and exchanges and things like that. And we started driving some traffic. And one day we got one sale, and that was probably one of the most exciting days of our lives. And then, besides our wedding, of course. And then it just started to pick up. And then we constantly were trying to improve the whole process. So we had tried to improve the ads, try to improve the website for conversion rate. And we'd increase the budget $5. And then, it was a slow process, but over time it snowballed, and there's certainly a lot of luck involved too. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, slow process. It's not an overnight success. You're just trying to find ways to eke out a little bit better conversion, better performance. Well, what changes do you recall though that you realize wow, this actually made a big difference in the trajectory of our business?
For me, I would say increasing our ad budget. I didn't think. I thought $50 a day was a lot.
It was to us then.
To us, it was a lot, and we needed to make sure that we were, going to be profitable to some extent, because we didn't have any backing. We've never taken backing. We're completely bootstrapped, it's scary in the beginning when you're, in our case, we were putting stuff on a credit card. So
yep, all on my credit card.
Yeah, it was. I would not recommend that.
Do not recommend
to people. It's very scary, but
yes.
We got lucky. So we increased the budget, and it made a huge difference. And unfortunately, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, advertising now is very different than it was in late 2016. I don't know if we could have started it like that today.
Yeah.
It's the marketing, especially on Facebook, is so much more competitive. It's so much more expensive. Our cost to acquire a customer has tripled in the last 6 years. And I think that's largely just due to advertising online. There's more and more people in it. Our space is a lot more competitive. And but back then, increasing the budget made a huge difference.
Makes sense. One thing you had mentioned, John, was about how you set up these objection handlers on the website, and you kind of talked quickly through. But I think there's an important point about how when someone lands on your website, they automatically don't trust things, or they're on guards. Tell us more about what objection handlers are, and like how to use them on a website.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, the first thing people do when they come to a site, we've all been educated. Okay, they're just trying to sell me something. You initially don't trust them, especially I think a website. Like I think the D2C space has kind of made it so that people are like, oh, it's a cool company, I'll check them out. But when you can buy stuff on Amazon, or you can buy stuff, at these other big platform sites like Walmart or Target, sites that you trust, I think going to a website can actually be a little scary. Of course, as an entrepreneur, I go there and I'm immediately like, oh, okay, well, they must be getting their product from here, and this is their business model and all that crazy stuff. But in our case, the most important thing to do was to establish trust. And I think we initially, and we still do, use lots of reviews, testimonials, testimonial videos, having a great review system so people can leave reviews, and they what does it say on Amazon? Verified purchase.
Verified purchase. Right.
People want to know that other people have had a good experience with your brand and that they can trust it. And that's a big, big part of it. And showing customers with your product and showing them using it and having it and being happy with it. I think that goes a long way, along with having policies on your site that are clear, concise, make sense, and don't scare people away with 10 pages of legal jargon. You want to treat the customer like you'd want to be treated. And if I go to a site and I don't know anything about them, I'm going to want to see an about page. Okay, what is this company about? Who are these people? What is their philosophy? What is their what are their goals with this business? What charities do they support? Like we've ever since day one, we've always supported a charity. We just did an amazing charity with Jack Daniels this past month and raised a ton of money to bring soldiers home for Christmas. And we're super proud of that. And I think our customers take notice of that and they appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's kind of evolved over time to understand like what elements to put on your website that either tell more about your story, but then also to kind of build that trust. Were there things that you've added along the way that, or maybe even for that, how do you know what to add to your website? How do you know what kind of objections your customers might have when they land on your site?
Yeah. Well, I think our customers first started telling us, hey, I want to see the product on somebody. Can you show it? Because, you have lots of product photography, but it's really important to show, as John was saying, the product in action. And certainly it's great on a customer, but if you don't have that yet, showing it on a person or how it would, be used in the world, like if it's a backpack or something, show a picture of a person just with a backpack on, and where are they going? Show them in motion, show the feeling that your product is going to evoke, in them once they are using it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Michelle, you mentioned something earlier on about how the data started revealing itself to both of you about, people in the Midwest like certain types of designs or, other data that you had discovered. Like I think touching on an earlier point about how the data is available, but then how do you actually make sense of it all? So how were you able to identify that, people from a certain demographic or certain geography, like certain range, like what kind of tools or like how do you unpack the data that you've collected?
Sure. I mean, initially we were using all of the Shopify analytics and, you can look by product, you can look by region. It's really cool. You can look by city. So it's fantastic what you guys have in order to be able for, folks like us to really dig in deep and see where the products are selling and why. But John, you might have some other tools that you
I mean, customer service is really also, that's huge. I mean, talking with your customers, one thing that we've been doing that has been super valuable is reaching out to our customers just randomly over email. I'll just email a customer and say, hey, do you have time for like a 20-minute meeting? I just want to sit down and pick your brain and talk to you about your experience with Manly Bins. And you'd be surprised how many people are just thrilled to talk to the company and actually put a face to the name of the company and whatnot. And we asked them all sorts of questions like, hey, what did you find difficult about the website? What made you almost not purchase? How would you describe us to a friend? And the data that we get from there about our styles, about our processes, about how customer service is working out is just invaluable. We learn so much, and then we implement those in changes to make us a better company.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point about how you want to collect this kind of more like qualitative data by just talking to customers, especially early on when you just don't have the quantity of data that is going to give you any useful information. Just reaching out, talking to any customers you have can be helpful. And you listed some kind of important questions that you asked. Were there any that come to mind that you just like, wow, I can't believe we missed this, but a customer said it and you put it into action and it made a big difference?
Yeah, one of the ones that probably impacted conversion rate is when, it did impact conversion rate for sure. When I was asking customers, because, Shopify is so great about kind of laying out all the customer information and how they purchase and like if they use discount codes. Mm-hmm. And so if I was interviewing or talking to somebody who's a discount code, I would ask, hey, did you have any trouble inputting your discount code? Did you see where that goes? And, in the beginning, they'd be like, oh, no, you know what? I had a lot of trouble finding that. And, it was really frustrating. And, I almost left because of it. And then it gets you thinking, oh my gosh, how many other customers have left because, they couldn't find the spot to put the coupon code in. And, we have a discount code listed at the top of our site. And so if they come in expecting to use it and then they can't, well, they're most likely going to bounce. And so that was hugely helpful. And so we found a way to make it more visible in the checkout. So that you can't miss it. And conversion rate definitely bumped up because of that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add too, just all the stuff on the Shopify homepage is so helpful. It's a real snapshot on what people are clicking on. Okay, these products were viewed most often and these were abandoned checkouts, and these are the people who are going to spend the most money in your store. And These are how people are coming into you. These are searches that people have put into the search where, it turned up nothing because you don't have a product or a tag for that. That kind of stuff is so easy to grab and fix right away.
Makes sense. And Michelle, you had mentioned too about how not only can you see what kind of products are getting a lot of activity, but you also mentioned that there's a process of culling products from the catalog. What's the process behind that?
Sure. You're looking at what isn't selling essentially. And for us, I think at the time that we did like a huge call earlier in the year, I think it was earlier in 2021, I think we had close to 400 products on the site. And our question was, I wonder if perhaps we could increase conversion rate if we made the amount of decisions a little bit less, So, okay, let's have less black zirconium rings. Let's have less Damascus steel. Let's make the decision a lot easier for guys. And so we went through and looked at rings that maybe were a little bit similar, got rid of one, saw if our customers were asking for the other one, that sort of thing. So it was a little bit of experimentation to sort of like get back to, okay, this is how many products we're going to have now. And I think now we have about 200, 220 products on the site. And we have a whole bunch of rings that are coming this year too, that we already know about, some partnerships we're working on and licenses and stuff. So we wanted to make room for those as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure those findings too help you decide what kind of new products to add and maybe to be even more selective, right? Like you had mentioned that you've been able to identify products that look similar, so you get rid of one so that there's less of this like analysis paralysis that your customers have. What about the when you add new products, how do you even begin to design and develop the product? How do you test if it's going to help by adding it to the catalog versus not?
Yeah. There's quite a vetting process that happens now. In the old days, it was really like, hey, this is cool and let's try it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with just, testing things in the beginning. And, John does a ton of A/B tests in all kinds of different respects. But in products now, we have a whole process of how we vet something. And we send out customer surveys, which is really, really helpful. There's a bunch of different apps that'll let you try that. And so we ask our customers, hey, would you like to see something with bright colors? Or would you rather see something kind of plain and normal, that sort of thing. It's really important to ask your customers, and you can do that and they will totally answer you, which is great. I think for a while we were in fear that we didn't want to bother anybody. We didn't want to bother them if they didn't want to engage with us. But the truth is people want to give their opinion. They really love to give their opinion. So if you, create a survey and allow them to give their opinion, whether it's on social or whether it's through email or, an exit survey on the site, those things are just invaluable.
Makes sense. So once you do design a product, like how does it actually get created? Like what's the lead time on a design to it being available for someone to buy?
Sure. It depends. It depends really on the material and, do we have it here or is it something we have to source and all that kind of stuff? So I would say anywhere from, 3 weeks to 2 months. It just sort of depends on all of it. We create the ring and then our creative team does a whole sort of campaign around it. And then our marketing team gets involved and they take over and do their campaign on it as well. So yeah, in that whole process, probably 3 weeks to 2 months, depending.
Got it. And speaking about expanding the product line, I want to talk about a comment about something that had, I guess that's a lesson that you've learned that you've now employed, which is around this idea of scaling smart and not fast. Tell us more about what this means to you guys.
Scaling smart and fast.
Oh, well, it just means using data, really. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Back in the beginning, of course, we didn't have as much data or we didn't understand it as much. We've learned a lot over the years. And having that data and looking at it from the customer surveys that we send out every day to just things that we've learned and our teams learned over time. I think for us, it is a little bit of a slower process as we've gotten larger. There's a lot more intensity involved in trying different ideas and more time involved. We make sure it's very intentional when we change something. It's not just a quick little, hey, let's change the color of that button. Like it's actually like a whole process now. And but it's for the better because what it allows us to do is really focus on what matters and then to take those resources to test it or to make it happen. So that's really helped us. And then once we find out something works, we scale up. We'll put more ad dollars behind it, or we'll send it out to more and more people, or we'll send a larger email list, things like that. So I think it's important to make sure that your decisions, especially nowadays, are backed by data.
Right. And everything is optimized before you hit that gas pedal because you're just wasting money if you're just hitting the gas pedal, but you're still flailing and trying things.
Yeah. Maybe you're not hitting the gas pedal. What if you're just kind of cruising, right? What's your framework for making a decision on whether, okay, that's enough time, let's kill this experiment and make a decision that no, it's not worth putting any more money into. Let's look at other opportunities versus like thinking that, okay, let's just wait, give it some more time. Like, how do you make that decision? What's the framework?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
We set certain KPIs, certain things that we're looking for this test or experiment or product to hit over time. And, we usually give website tests might be 3 to 4 weeks. Product tests, typically a series of months.
6 months to a year, depending.
Yeah. And it really just kind of depends. I mean, are we losing money on it? Are we making money on it? Are we making what we want to make on it? Are we really losing money on it? Like, obviously, if you're really losing money, you don't want to wait long. If it's something that you're making money, but, it's not, where you want it to be, then you have a choice. Either, okay, let's stop and put our efforts towards something that can really do a better job, or is there a tweak or an optimization that we can make that could change it? I think it's a lot of kind of understanding the process and what you're trying to accomplish, and then just kind of testing.
Yeah. There's a lot of gut instinct in some of this too,
Right.
and you start to, your gut gets more, what's the word I'm looking for? Gets more attuned to making the right decisions, as you keep testing and as you keep trying things.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think there's like an element of needing kind of patience and realization that you're probably not going to get as many answers right at the beginning versus later, right? Because I think a lot of people look to kind of hit it out the ballpark right off the bat. And if they don't, they think, well, this whole thing is a complete failure. I'll never get better at this. And let me just give up, right? But I think that what you're getting at is that it takes time to kind of develop this muscle to make the right decisions.
It really does. Yeah, it's so important to have patience and a strategy. You need to have a strategy before you launch things or before you test things, even just to make sure you don't go over budget. Or, in the beginning, like when we were very much spending money that we maybe didn't have, we definitely wanted to have a strategy. It's like, all right, if this ad's not working in 2 days, we're probably going to pull it and try something else because we can't afford to lose money on it. So I think it's really important to kind of set those boundaries in the beginning so that, you don't lose your shirt, as you're trying to launch a business.
And speaking of another kind of big investment is this, the growing team that you have. You had mentioned teams that are all kind of churning once things are in motion to launch a new product. Talk to us about hiring and growing a team. Like, what was that first kind of hire that you had, and how did you know that you needed to hire someone?
For sure. So when we were starting in the garage, it was crazy. Like we'll just throw it out there. It was nuts. We were wearing all the hats. Thank God there's the two of us. I couldn't imagine doing it.
My parents were our warehouse workers. So
yeah, it was wild. And Michelle's doing customer service. I'm doing creative for the rings, the photos, and running Facebook ads, and the website and all that stuff. It was overwhelming. And eventually, it got to a point where we're like, all right, we need help. And I think our first hire, one thing that was really stressing us out was social media. We're advertising on Facebook, and Google, of course, but on Facebook in particular, we have to deal with comments on the ads. We have to be posting. I'm sure when you've talked to a lot of people that have emphasized the importance of social media, that's a full-time job in itself. So for us, I think our first hire was a social media manager who's still with us today, and that was a huge help. That gave us a couple hours back, so we could then continue doing the warehouse stuff and shipping from the garage and running to the post office every day with these big bags. And I'd say after that, for us, we had run that ourselves, the warehouse, probably for about 6 or 7 months, and it was getting to the point where it was really difficult to have a life. The work-life balance was way off. Yeah. I mean, we're 15-hour day, like it was crazy. So we and this is something I recommend to any entrepreneur, like 3PLs are your friend.
Yes.
And we worked with a couple of amazing 3PLs where we were able to kind of offload the shipping and the returns and exchanges, reasonable price per order. And it changed our lives. We could then really, really focus on growing the business, creating new and better products, better customer service, faster website updates, better creative, and all of that. That's a hard one because that's a lot of time shipping and packaging and exchanging and all of that.
Yeah, and it's important too to find a 3PL that has the same values as you too, because a lot of 3PLs, are doing exactly that. They're just shipping your stuff out. But we were able to find Ships a Lot, who was amazing. And their customer service is incredible to you as the customer. And they were really great at being able to QC our rings and, when they came in and just making sure that everything was perfect when it went into the box. So, it was really nice to be able to rely on a company that became friends of ours, it was great.
Yeah. I mean, with any vendor, especially 3PL, I highly recommend working with a company that is more of a partner than, just a vendor. You really want someone who understands you, who picks up the phone when you call. And we had worked with a couple of 3PLs prior to working with Ships a Lot. It was a disaster. I mean, I couldn't get customer service. Our stuff wasn't getting sent out. We had trouble with their platform that they had, and there was no help. But we found in Ships a Lot and in a number of other vendors that we use, it's better if they're partners. Like they understand what you're trying to do. They want to support you, and they're there for you. And that's really what we try to do now with all of our partners.
Yeah, and as you are working with partners, hiring a team, I think one question that you probably are asking to yourself is like, is my unique capabilities, unique skills, unique position, better used somewhere else rather than on this particular task, this particular function in the business? How do you make that decision? How do you realize, okay, actually, it's better use of our time on developing new products? I think this is something that is kind of hard to decide. Like, I'm not sure if this is something I should continue to do or if my time is better spent somewhere else. How do you know that answer to, is my time better spent somewhere else?
Yeah, I think for me, it came to my experience previous to Manly Bands. I had run a small marketing agency with my business partner, Scott, at the time. And we really got good at that. And that was where our strength was. And so obviously shipping and returns and exchanges are super important. And we have an amazing team in-house now that does that for us. And they're just incredible. But for us, that wasn't where our expertise was. So what we tried to do in the beginning is kind of outsource the stuff that we weren't as comfortable with or as experienced with, so that we could focus on the areas that we understood or had some more expertise in, because we knew that ultimately that would help us grow faster if we're focusing on things that we understand.
Right, because those people actually they're specialized in those areas. Not only do they now have the time and brain space to get to those areas, but they have the know-how. So like our warehouse manager, when we brought him in, he had all of this warehouse experience and just knew all of these things that we didn't know. And it was so incredibly helpful. So I think that's been, a part of every single hire since then. I think if John and I were to actually look at our team now, there's probably about 20, 25 people that do the jobs that he and I used to do, which is amazing, and it's incredible to see that expansion and how much more we can do because of that.
Yeah. And they do it a lot better than we ever did. They are amazing. We found that a general hiring philosophy is hire people that are much smarter than yourselves. And we have a team of some very intelligent, smart, and experienced people. And we wouldn't be where we are without them.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of comment about hiring people that are smarter than you is like something that should not be kind of brushed under the rug, because I think there's a hesitancy to think, oh man, if I don't know this stuff myself, then my business is screwed. But like you can kind of, it's a testament to your success. I think you can kind of pay to cut that learning curve, right? That bring someone in that already knows what they're doing. Like there's no reason that you need to be a master of it yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's hard. There's so much to learn. I mean, I'm sure as all of your listeners have know and experience, like when you're starting a company, you do everything. Yes. And there is no school or college that teaches you every single part of running a company, especially an e-commerce company. And that's all of those responsibilities are changing every day, just as the industry, grows and marketing changes and whatnot. So it is important, whether it is you're working with somebody you hire who's an expert, or an agency, or a 3PL. In the beginning, we outsourced everything. We had a very small team. Our first hire was the social media manager, but then we quickly expanded our customer service channels team, and photography we brought in-house, and with every hire, a little less weight was taken off our shoulders, and then we would focus that somewhere else and put the weight right back on. But then we could grow a little faster. So it all made sense at the time, and now we're just surrounded by so many amazingly capable people that it's it's fun to come to work because the pressure's not there and we can focus on what we were really good at. And that's kind of directionally directing the company and making sure, making sure our teams are taken care of and they have what they need and all those other CEO type duties that help businesses grow.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one big project that I'm sure that you're both really focused on are these like partnerships with companies. When you go to your website, like we have Fender you worked with, Jack Daniels, MLB. Talk to us about some of these relationships. How were you able to create these kind of partnerships?
Yeah, so we have an incredible gal on our staff named Jenny, and she heads our licensing department, and she is just amazing at talking to these folks and getting them on board. And so I don't know all of the amazingness that she does when she's on the phone with these folks, but she's really been able to go after partnerships that we've been so excited about. Jack Daniels was such an easy thought because Whiskey Barrel is something that people are putting in wedding bands. It's something, of course, we're putting in wedding bands and have been for a while. And it was great to be able to find an American brand that is just so well known. You know, I feel like everybody feels good about Jack Daniels. And, you know, you can go into any bar in the United States and they have Jack Daniels. And so it was just a great thing to be able to partner with them. And they're just such a fun company to work with too. And Fender is just a blast. I mean, absolutely. I'm a guitar player. I grew up playing guitar. And so I was so excited when we started going down the road of Fender. And I think, you know, part of all these partnerships is we have to be excited about them, but also our customers have to be excited about them too. And that's where the surveys come back into play too. Our head of products, Chris, is amazing about sending these surveys out and making sure that customers are interested in this stuff before we, you know, jump down the road. So that I would say is super important.
Yeah, some of these relationships and licenses take a long time to put together. Our CMO Stephanie has actually brought Jack Daniels to us, and the amount of work they spent on that. I mean, these are big partnerships. There's pages and pages of contracts, and that's how the licensing world works. But we knew that, you know, it would all be worth it in the end. And it has been. Both them and us are super happy with the way things have turned out. And I think it's just a testament to the team. You know, it's the kind of thing where when you have a really great team who are really thinking outside the box, they'll bring these types of ideas to you, and they just hit it out of the park every time.
Awesome. So manlybands.com is a website. And I'll leave you with this last question, which is, what do you think is the area that you two want to focus on that you think will make the biggest kind of change, improvement to the business if you could put more attention onto it?
Sure. So we spend a lot of money in paid ads. And so one thing we're really working on this year is increasing our organic reach. So we're on a YouTube set right now. You can't see it, but we're really investing heavily in video and photo studios here in-house to continue to create the best ring content for men out there. And we're growing
content for men in
just
general.
Content for men in general. Yeah. So, you know, we're hoping to expand our lines. We're international. We're hoping to expand that. And
we have our women's line too,
yeah,
which we launched on rosiebraid.com, but we also now have it on Manly Bands as well, some of it, so you can purchase it right there, which is great. But yeah, just getting organic traffic is going to be huge for us, and being able to allow our customers to connect with the brand in that way too, I think will be, you know, even better and better as time goes on.
Yeah, what's really fun about this business, and I think any e-commerce business, is there's always room to grow. There's always ways to optimize. There's always avenues to pursue, and we're just excited for the future. I mean, there's so many new technologies and platforms and all sorts of things coming out that we're just excited to get in there and test the waters. It's a really fun place to be and a great industry to be playing in.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, John and Michelle, for sharing your experience and story.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.